Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the afternoon session of the second day of International Conference on Education Photography. This year topic is Ethical Shift in Photography. I'm Steve Bisson, and one of the co-founders of this Blurring the Lines program, and our conference is one of the main activities we run along the year. Today's session is dedicated to actually the finalists of this year edition of Blurring the Lines. And we have, as this morning, we have two panels running this afternoon. The upcoming panel will be moderated by Alexandra Maldonado, who was actually a finalist of last year edition of Blurring the Lines. Thank you, Alexandra, for being with us. Alexandra will introduce, of course, the participant of this panel. And following this third panel, there will be a fourth panel about the role of the audience, which will be moderated by Daan Russcher, who is also a finalist of last year's edition of Blurring the Lines. So thanks a lot for being here, and thanks for the audience, the people are there listening to us on live and maybe listening back the recording the next day. So thanks again, and have a good panel. Bye.
Thank you, Steve, for the introduction. My name is Alexandra Maldonado. I'm a photographer and activist for the rights of migrant women here in Ecuador. And it's a pleasure to be here in this panel with you. This panel is talking about social media implications, a really controversial theme, but I think it's really necessary to talk about it. So we have our panelists here, Yarení, Jana, Nona, Milah, and Alexander. So I'm gonna ask you to introduce yourselves like really quickly. So if Yarení, you want to start?
Sure. Hi, my name is Yarení Aguado. I'm a photographer based in Mexico City. I come from AVI, Academia de Artes Visuales in Mexico City, and my photography right now is focused on environmental issues.
Yeah. Thank you, Yarení. Jana, you want to go?
Yeah, hi. My name is Jana Rothe. I'm originally from Luxembourg, and I studied and I live in Hamburg. And yeah, I graduated last year my bachelor's degree in photography, and it was about contemporary female clowning.
Nona?
Hi, I'm Nona, and I'm an artist based in Dublin, Ireland right now. And I graduated with my MFA in photography and image making from Paris College of Art in May. And my work largely focuses on the body and biotechnology. My background is in documentary filmmaking and science. So often this idea of like truth and science and biology is like kind of weaved throughout the work that I produce.
Thank you. Milah?
Yeah, hi. My name is Milah van Zuilen. I'm from the Netherlands, and I'm a visual artist, but also a forest ecologist in training. And through my work, I really try to bend those two disciplines of art and ecology closer toward each other. And yeah, currently based between the Netherlands and the Czech Republic.
Thank you, Milah. And Alexander?
Hi, I'm Alexander Komenda. I am born and raised in Canada with Polish roots. I'm based in Helsinki currently, and I finished my BA at the University of South Wales in Cardiff. And my work is sort of, I guess, situated in the contemporary documentary sphere, which largely focuses, at least my most recent work, on Central Asia and Kyrgyzstan and sort of larger geopolitical implications, trying to reveal sort of bigger ideas from a small story. And yeah, that's sort of in a nutshell.
Thank you so much. So we're going to begin with the first question. So feel free to open your microphone and let's have this conversation. How does social media practice and the increasing need for approval affect image makers' choices from an ethical point of view? Anyone, you can just open your microphone and begin. Yarení, you want to start?
Okay, sure. Well, I think in the first place, when we as photographers decide to place a photo in the social media is because we are aware of the context where we are placing the image. And there are so many implications. I don't know where to begin, but the first one is like when you decide to post your photo, you need to actually associate it with an idea already. Like it cannot be floating on social media, otherwise we will be lost in the overwhelming, already overloaded digital world. So when a photographer decides to post an image online, probably we use hashtags or we post it on a specific account, tag it some specific people. And that's, we are immediately narrowing and I guess applying a specific discourse to a narrative, an indication to that image. So that's one point that we could start discussing maybe.
Yeah, sure. It's really interesting that that we are like posting more for our community, like close community that we have, like they're sharing with us discussions or whatever. But what if your post goes to, I don't know, like real far away? How do you think, because it happens a lot, because like sharing is going to everywhere. So what do you think if your photo, what is the implication of this photo, like going really far away of your community, like this comfort zone? What do you think? It's not specific for Yarení, it's for everyone. What do you think if your photo and the concept and everything goes to another community? How is like, how's this community gonna take it, and what is the implications to put it like in another places?
I mean, I think it's definitely important to think about the idea of losing control of images that you produce in the dark web. I was just thinking about like the project Facing the Void that I created for my thesis work is about photographic masks. And, you know, I make it very clear that it's about this idea of being able to share your identity while protecting yourself from COVID. But I could imagine a place where maybe that could be put in a context of anti-maskers are being used as like a divisive image. And that hasn't happened, thank goodness, I don't think. But if it did, like, I would think it's my responsibility to like take that image down or recontextualize it and try to gain that control back as an image maker. But that's definitely, I think it's a responsibility for us to kind of keep tabs on what's happening to the images we make.
Yeah, it's really interesting this about like losing control of it, because now it's public, it's not only yours, and it takes like a responsibility of what we share, what we put there, but still we are not in like complete control of the idea, right? Because it's gonna have like another interpretations, and it depends of the culture of the community that it goes. So it's really interesting that like you have to be aware that it's like gonna be like public now. So anyone else? What do you think, Milah, about it?
I was muted. Yeah, well, I think I definitely agree that as you already, like as photographers, you frame something, and in the act of framing something, you sort of tend to grow maybe a sense of ownership of the thing that you just framed. And then I think placing it then in another context of social media, for example, then also creates like an extra layer of responsibility, as you said. So I definitely agree, but I was mainly also thinking about the for me personally, it can be slightly overwhelming, just like the sheer amount of input and this whole acceleration that's happening in image making and image sharing on social media platforms. And I think as artists and definitely as photographers, that directly influences our practice. So yeah.
I thought about the same thing as well as Milah, like how all these rules of Instagram, this algorithm or this fact that it stays kind of in our community and it's really difficult to reach another public, how that affects our art. Like, are we changing our art in order for it to be placed differently in Instagram, or do we produce different art so it's better in the algorithm of Instagram? So I thought about that directly when I heard the question. Like, I think it's really dangerous, or it has a kind of positive effect, but that's like a negative effect of it. So I think artists need to think about if they do changes in order to place it on social media.
Alexandra, you want to say something about this?
Yeah, absolutely. Like it was just mentioned, there's this sort of danger to sort of catering to the masses or to this sort of populist tendency of having your work, say, validated, because in some way it becomes like a metric, like, oh, this work is not as liked. Or, I mean, of course, when I think social media in the context of photography, I think Instagram and like, why, oh, well, this post got less, does it mean it's not as good? And then it can create this, it does to a certain degree, like, influence the way you want to share your process or your work, or how is your representation of yourself in the world, like, how do you decide, how do you want to see, so there's so many, I guess, like, things to be careful about, and also the limitations of the platform itself. Like, it's only entrapped in this one format of showing your work, and okay, maybe you can put a few images or something, but it does, it can be a bit worrying in that sense, because everyone is sort of, in this global community, and like it or not, it's hard not to participate as a photographer, and it's difficult to control this big thing. So, but those are just some thoughts.
And I think it's quite different from other artistic mediums, because like social media, the nature is sharing a photograph, which is the medium that we're working in. Whereas if you share a photograph of a painting, like, it doesn't have necessarily the same like value or reproducible quality as sharing our original images. So it's also interesting to just think like where the value in the image decreases, like this idea of the poor image, and if that then makes our work more valuable because more people are seeing it and there's that level of accessibility. But at the same time, does somebody maybe not want to come to a gallery showing or buy the original work because they simply already have access to it in a pretty close to real form? So
yes, very interesting that we don't have like to focus only on this digital thing, so we can like mix platforms. And I think like mixing platforms, and we talk about this with the last year that I was like part of a panel, that what about these communities that they have not access to the social media, how we can like go to these communities and share the work with them. And I think that as creators, we have to talk about like this concept and who are we talking to, and then plan how we are gonna like post or do an exhibition, or I don't know, like a discussion in a community or something. So we have to like take this like a complete view about like all the platforms or things that we have to share our work, and to keep the value of the work too, because that's right, like Instagram and that kind of media always like take like the quality down to put it up. And I don't know, it's like difficult to keep like the standards that we want as creators, right? And I was reading something about Yarení that you were talking about, like at the end you put this question that who are the owners of the image? And I would love to hear something of this, like at the end, who is the owner? Who is like taking this image as like theirs? So if you want to share something about like what you say, and I would love to hear.
Sure. I think it was mentioned before, but once the image is public, you are no longer in control as well. Like, and then it really depends on, like, you can only be responsible for so much. I don't share the idea that I am fully responsible of my image. I am in the context that I decide to use it and where and when to use it, like when am I producing it. But then I can try to recontextualize the image, but it doesn't belong to me anymore because it's a public good for me at the end. And that, we could get into another discussion about property rights, right? Which is a whole other thing. But for me, they can use it. Like I'm once it's out there, it can be used for absolutely anything. And even if I try and say, hey, you know what, that's not the intention that it was meant for, I don't have the power. Like the digital world is much larger than the control that I have over the image. I don't know if it makes sense or not.
Yeah, sure. And then it comes like a question: how do we protect the object or the person that we are like photographing? Like, how do we protect these identities? And I think that Jana was talking about this in your work because you talk about like identity, the identities, and identity plus photos. So how do we protect these identities in a personal work when you can say faces and people that are real? How do we protect this as creators?
Well, if I understood right, like I only learned 2 days ago that that we don't have the rights anymore on the photos that we post on Instagram. Like I didn't know it. Maybe many other people know about that, but I didn't. So everybody can use your photo from Instagram, and you give the rights, and not only the rights of me from the photographer, but the rights from the person who is on the picture as well. So I think knowing that is already is a complete different thing, and so you have responsibility for the person who is on the picture as well. So and to post it on Instagram, I think it's like on the one hand, you're really free, like everybody can use the app. It is for free, like you don't have to pay, and there are endless possibilities, which is really good, I think. And at the same time, like Alexander said, that you're quite limited in some ways, like for example, that you're not allowed to post female nipples. Or we had before in the talk earlier of Anna, I think her name was, who got blocked for a week because of her art from Instagram because you could see a naked woman. So I think that's what we still have to fight for as artists if we are planning in the future to stay on those apps. I think that's our responsibility as well to make it aware.
Thank you, Jana. And Alexandra, I saw a little bit of your work, and I think it's like really interesting to put the identity like with persons and with landscapes and like making like a whole thing, you know, and how to communicate what you are doing, but still like keeping like the concept, like if the work goes like really to another community and everything, how to protect this, how to protect your work. And because there are like different ways to know, it doesn't matter if it's like public, but I think like making like a really clear statement about what you are saying with your photography, it's gonna go with the photography. So what do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I guess it's like, of course, it's important to protect, but there's only so much you can do to protect, because then I suppose that protection is somehow tied into how people might read into the image. Or so of course there's so much you can do. Like, I agree, it was mentioned before that to a certain extent there's only so much you can control on your end of the responsibility. But of course, when it comes to presenting certain subjects, certain topics that are certain specific topics that you need to be careful, respectful, consensual, there needs to be, like it's been mentioned today or yesterday, like a form of reciprocity between yourself and the subject, and a sort of agreement. But of course, like, maybe they don't know at the time that it might, this project might go so far or something, and it is difficult to keep everybody up to speed. And does that lie ethically? Is that okay? And also, what kind of world does that also create if it becomes something that we're always very careful about making sure that everyone is okay? It makes it maybe too safe or something. I don't know if you're following my train of thought here, but it's like then we're just in a room with everything that's like cushions, and maybe that's not a world we want to live in either, perhaps. I don't know.
Anyone has something to say about, like Alexander is talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Jana said something about that earlier, just like the idea of making images to sort of please social media, and like how that could inhibit your artistic practice. And yeah, that's definitely interesting to consider, like because there's like this to make it in the art world to some extent. So how much are you even subconsciously like creating images that might get a response or work better on social media, or being able to think of your project as a series, because posting in a series is best for how you release images on social media and these types of things. It's interesting to think about how like this generation of artists might be marked, or there might be certain like patterns that you see about how we're making art in this context.
I would like to elaborate on that as well. Like subconsciously is the time that we are investing in both producing and consuming the images, because we don't have time anymore. So as we scroll down, we really need to, like, at least myself, I just don't stop in every picture, of course. Like, it has to be something that grabs my attention. And then that, of course, subconsciously, that's a difficult word, influence the way that I do art, probably. And yeah, I think at least I have to bear in mind how much will people invest in seeing what I'm producing. Probably is 1 second, and that's another thing about social media, immediacy, and yeah.
Well, and I think the pandemic as well, because there is that much less access to viewing work in person. Like, I think a lot of people were relying on social media to have any audience for their work for the past 2 years in a large way. So.
Yeah, and I definitely think that also, like, the fact that your attention span kind of reduces, not only it doesn't only happen as you sort of consume all the images, but it also seeps into the act of sharing. Like you feel, I think many people feel the urge or the need to sort of reduce what they want to say in like a very effective or efficient, small, short sentence, just to grasp people's attention. And yeah, that definitely also influences, I think, people that share their work.
Yes, that's very interesting. And I think like, as you say, like the pandemic, like put us in a different position around like social media too. We were like sharing more and consuming more. I don't know if producing more, but consuming more like social media. We were like doing that, and we're still doing it. And we had like a different relationship now with social media too, because it was, in some cases, it was like a kind of communication with the exterior, with another people. And I think like something changed there. Something changed in this last year and this last 2 years. And there I go like to what Yarení said, is like we have to be like more conscious of what we consume. And I think like as creators, we have like this responsibility of what we consume and with what we share with the people, because that's like I think we are like consuming, and that's like kind of inspiration too, like because we are like visual persons, and it's like we are always like receiving that, and that's part of what we put then in our work or in what we share. So we have to be conscious what we see, what we consume, and to be conscious in what we put later around that inspiration that we get. So I don't know if someone of you, like we were like working in some project during the pandemic, and can we talk a little bit of how it changed, like in the perception of that we were like in social media, we were like in pandemic, and we were like not in communication with a lot of people as we used to do it. So someone want to share?
I think the communication was not less, but just like in a different way. Maybe like the superficial communication. I mean, like putting the like button or commenting on pictures was definitely more, but the communication was there via Zoom a lot, or people tried to do exhibitions online, or it was a great opportunity to learn like new ways of how you can present your work. Like, for example, 3D rooms or something. So yeah, I think at the same time it was some good opportunity to learn new ways.
Milah, you want to share something with us?
Yeah, well, I guess, well, for me personally, in the beginning of the pandemic, I noticed that I turned away a bit more from social media in the beginning. My work is focused on the landscape and being out, the process of being outside, and also more turned inwards. So, and I think in the beginning, the pandemic definitely fueled that more. So moving away a bit from sharing on social media. But more recently, I've definitely also noticed the increase, and also around me. But I just, like, as we talk about these topics, I also feel there's so many contradictions from an artist point of view, like when you speak about these platforms, because there's for example, this interaction with people, or the interaction between public and your work is way more direct, and maybe in general just occurring more than in a physical situation, but also more anonymous. So I'm just feeling a lot of contradictions in these topics.
Jana? Oh, sorry, Yarení. Keep going. No, keep going. It's fine.
I am following with Milah. I think, for instance, the response is very limited in social media. I mean, at least in the platforms such as Instagram, because it's either like or not. And then probably people engage in commenting something that it's only like it has a reaction. It doesn't really give a space for in between ground. And I think that is also impacting the work. It's polarizing, in a sense, what we are seeing.
Yeah, I think that put like a little bit of, I don't know, like pressure, or like this pressure about like thinking more about what we're posting. And I think that, for example, having this algorithm in Instagram that if you don't post like for a long time, you're gonna be like punished for something, and it doesn't go. It's not gonna be like appearing in the profiles of your friends or the community or wherever. It's like really like a pressure where we are like posting and sharing, like because you have to be like really constant on what you share. So as you say, Alexander, you have to have like this little plan to post or to share your work. And I think like in the first panel of today, someone was talking about like that she posed like a really intimate project that she was like doing, and Instagram put it down and locked her for like 1 week, I think. So that's the other thing, that how to work like in these like really intimate like projects without like being locked down by Instagram or social media, and how to deal with that too, because it's real and it happens a lot. So what do you think about it? Like, I think we have like more like 10 minutes to close, so it will be nice to hear like all of you like around this topic.
I was just thinking, like, I think it's structures around how social media is built, and the filters of like who's deciding what work is blocked. And also there's this lack of transparency in terms of Instagram wanting to keep tell you necessarily right away. It might withhold 50 likes until you check back on the app a few hours later. Like, there's different ways that it's designed to keep your attention. And who are those people? Like, who are the people we are sharing our work, how people are interacting with our work, in this feedback loop, that what you were saying earlier about this idea of having responsibility for what we consume as like an input, and then what we make as like an output. There is this cyclical nature to it, and it is really intertwined with this power structure of like how social media is built. It's like, it's pretty crazy to think about that. Just like the big picture, it's like overwhelming.
Yeah, it's totally like that. So Jana, you want to share with us?
Yeah, sure. I think the first question we need to ask ourselves is if Instagram is then the right platform to share photographic art, if there are so many limitations and like a weird ethical way to work with photos, or if we continue to use it, which probably we all will do, it would maybe be an idea to introduce a code of ethics. For example, if it's not coming from Instagram, it has to come from the users. For example, to always write when a photo is retouched, like what did the photographer do to the photo, all of this. And maybe it has even to go further, that there have to be laws about this kind of things, because I don't see I don't see a positive future concerning this if it stays exactly how it is at the moment. I mean, it has so many great opportunities, this app, and it can have an amazing impact on social developments, and you can educate yourself on all of this, and that's great. But it needs more, a code of ethics or a new frame where we can move into that world.
Yarení, you want to share with us?
Yeah, I agree with Nona. For instance, like we have to, I think, demand more transparency from the platforms that we are using. Like we deserve it, and in that regard, probably it's our responsibility to be more actively digitally, like digital activism, to really demand what we need in terms of privacy and freedom as well, because we are reshaping the world, and programmers are the ones that are taking control, as Nona is saying, without really feedback from all the users, and we really should be considering in those decisions.
Alexander, you want to share, or you want to go with a question that we have in YouTube? What do you want?
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, I mean, on one end, it's a bit of a sad reality because, I mean, if they don't, you know, like, it's looking grim in the sense that I don't know if they're actually gonna do any changes to allow, like, maybe, like it's been mentioned, photography for photographers and visual artists and such. Maybe Instagram is not the ideal platform. However, it is the most, say, democratic. It's, you know, it's free and all this. So hopefully there is some sort of solution. For example, like if nudity is the issue, can Instagram not say, I don't know, restrict the like usage of like minors, like below 18 or something, if that's the core issue or one of the issues that, you know, photographers and visual artists keep running into. It seems like, again, like it's been mentioned, we should demand more transparency and demand these issues to be resolved so artists can express their work and be more free. And yeah, it is scary to think that there's like a board and people actually making decisions on what is or isn't deemed okay or not. So the same with Twitter and these types of things. So that's definitely something we should demand more.
Milah?
Yeah, I agree on the transparency. And also, I think the ubiquitous use of all these platforms also still masks that there is still a very exclusive aspect to it. That you might have the feeling like, oh, it's I'm sharing my work and it's a very open and free platform and I'm reaching all kinds of different people. But it's I think it would be, or for me personally, nice to be more aware of the fact that it's still very exclusive and it really sort of frames your work towards very specific groups of people, which is out of your hands then really. So yeah, but I agree that transparency could definitely also help with that.
Thank you, Milah. We're going to finish with two questions that we have on YouTube. The first one is, we always talk about the negative side of social media. What are some of the positive experiences, if any? Who wants to respond to that?
I think we all, like, as we talked about the negative effect, like we all said how it can be used in a positive way. I think we say that it connects people, like you get really easy to have contact with other people, especially if you're, for example, an introverted person and you don't go to exhibitions, so you can still connect with other people, or everybody can show their work and it's for free and all of this. So yeah, I think people don't only talk about the negative effects, because we all use it every day and nobody says that it's only negative, I think.
Yes, thank you, Jana. And the second one is, have you ever thought about using social media as an environment to be explored? I think like we always like explore social media, right? It's like, I think like this kind of questions that we are having about like ethics, and it's because we are exploring and we are like being like conscious about like what is like inside the platforms that we are using. So if someone wants to close with responding this question.
Well, I think that social media has been used as like a platform for experimentation in terms of like there's some artists that have created platforms of like kind of false identities, and it's almost like a scientific experiment to approach the platform and see if people feel like these images are real or not, and have like kind of different ways of engaging and taking advantage like how the platform's made. So I think that's one way to kind of explore the platform and experiment.
Thank you, Nona. Okay, so it was really nice to share with you this panel. We have to be conscious that there's like this positive and negative thing about like social media and the implications that it has with our work and with the subject of our work. So we have to be conscious, we have to be aware of that, but we don't have to be scared, I think, about it, because it's like a way to go to different communities that are not like in our like zone. So explore is really good, but really be aware of what happened with our images when they are like up there. And nothing. Thank you so much. Thank you, and see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Yes, welcome everybody. Good to see you all. We're going to talk at this fourth panel of today and the last one of the conference about the role of the audience in image making and photography. We have a pretty diverse group, I think, so I'm really looking forward to all your personal views and experiences on this topic. I want to thank Klaus and Steve for inviting me and for inviting you all. For the conversation, feel free to respond to each other and to just keep the conversation going. I will be leading, but feel free to also respond to each other. I think it's good to introduce ourselves shortly. So I will start myself, and then you can all tell us a bit about yourself and about your work. My name is Daan Russcher. I graduated at the HKU, University of the Arts in Utrecht, in the Netherlands last year, 2020. I was a finalist of the Blurring the Lines 2020 edition. And I took part in last year's conference as a participant. In my visual work, I search for new ways to depict urban environments. And I mainly focus on the frayed edges of the city. So parts of the city that are not as they should be and are breaking down a bit. And these are indeterminate transitional areas that people often find difficult to read. And in my photography, I use my photography and materials I find to deconstruct them and reconstruct them and inside an active way of looking. So that's about me. Maybe Raoul, you can tell us a bit about yourself and your work.
Yes, hi, hello everybody. Very glad to be here. Thank you all for having me in your home here with the other panelists and of course the organizers. I'm Raúl Jiménez, I'm from Mexico. I think my core work is focused in health, probably around my own health at first, but also the impact that health has in all of us and in all kinds of patients, and how the medicine business is conducted. I think that's all.
Thank you. Maybe Antonia, you can say something.
Yeah, hi. I'm Antonia. I studied visual arts in Portugal, and then I did a master at Elisava in Barcelona in photography and design. I basically work around experimental photography, and I like to work with a variety of images, also archival image, and the photography connected to memory and roots, family roots. Also questioning this idea of how photography is connected with memory, basically deconstructing a little bit. Also the way we perceive images. I normally like to experiment through different mediums, making images go through different mediums as like a volatile and ambiguous thing.
Thank you. Cora?
Hi, everyone. My name is Cora. I was born and grew up in China. And in 2014, I came to study in Hungary. And this year, I graduated from photography master program at Moderator University of Art and Design in Budapest. In my work, I mainly explore topics of identity by visualizing memories, time, and daily life. I make fictional and non-fictional stories in the context of urban culture. Thank you.
Thank you. Camilla?
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Camilla. I come from Italy and I graduated from a bachelor from ISIA in Urbino. I work between photography and graphic design, and I like to use photography as a tool for getting close to things and trying to understand them, basically. So, yeah, this is it.
Thank you. Suzannah?
Hi everyone, so my name is Suzannah. I was born and raised in London. I currently attend London College of Fashion, which is part of the University of the Arts London, and I'm studying MA Fashion Photography. So a lot of my work incorporates embroidery, but I also do fashion portraiture, conceptual, behind the scenes. A lot of the practice involved in my work also touches on representation of women, social media, self-esteem. I'm currently working on a project that is delving into double consciousness and liminality amongst Black British youth. So yeah, a lot of my work is quite investigative, and I'm always trying to question and find answers as well.
Thank you. Well, I have the first question for you all, because I think you all, I looked up your work and you all make really different kinds of work. And I'm wondering, what is the role of the audience in your work? Is it like, are you constantly aware of who is going to see your work, how they will perceive it, and does it affect your decision-making while working on a project? How is this for you?
I can go first. So with One of One, which touches on self-esteem amongst creative women, it was very much a project that I believed was quite important to touch on. I feel like it's quite timeless, unfortunately, because I guess there's two sides to it, but it's timeless in the sense that creative women, and I don't know if you all have experienced this, but myself as a creative woman, when I'm creating work, I'm always in a sort of battle of comparison, imposter syndrome, all these things. And I'm always comparing my work to other people's works and thinking that I'm not good enough. And I thought to myself, maybe there's other people out there who are also feeling the same way. So I reached out to, or in fact, they reached out to me. I put the call out on the Dots, which is a creative platform, and they reached out to me. And taking into account the audience, I also wanted the pool of women who I call subjects to be diverse, because it's not self-esteem and sort of mental health stuff. It's not something that's subject to one race or one age group. It's very much global in that sense. So I wanted my project to also be a reflection of society, and in turn, a reflection of the audience as well.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Well, I didn't want to start because I think, in different from all of you, I have a really different point about the place of the audience. In my own work, I truly don't acknowledge audience until it's quite finished. This is because when I was starting, for example, with this last project, I had a rather bitter experience. When my mother saw my pictures, she was really heartbroken. She was really sad, and we actually wept together after a great argument. This is because my photograph work around the idea of my own health, which is sadly not existent. And from that, I learned that if I wish to create the images I want, I really have to evade the possibility to show it to the audience until I have a properly finished work. For example, I try to show my pictures in Instagram and in Behance, and both platforms censored me and told me that if I try to upload pictures like this again, I will probably lose my account. Ironically, my pictures, the ones you probably seen, are a bit toned down of what I was expecting to make at first. But yeah, if I try to acknowledge the audience, I will not be able to create the images I do. And eventually, when I do have a more serious, a more complete work, I can portray, I can show an idea, a complete idea of what I'm looking to photograph or to capture in the paper or any other platform of media. And now, in that precise moment, is that the audience feel a bit more receptible to it. So the image as a whole is not, as an individual image, it's not something I try to use to come close to the audience, but only my finished work, because if I don't, I am quite sure I would probably generate a lot of bad interpretation of the work. And this is something quite interesting for me, because the more I try to create images that pulse in the audience, I have to wonder if these images will eventually pulse the audience, because I can't experiment. I can't take a small show, a small sample of the work and look this, because I will have a negative experience and probably get afar from that work.
Thank you. Antonia, do you have anything to say?
Sorry, I was muted. Well, I like to open up a conversation with the audience and not leave it as something very objective and clear, but that through my own personal experiences and this really long process of introspection, to also find to question the audience and open that space for dialogue and interpretations. That might not always be so linear and clear, but yeah, I think that is one of the most important things in art.
Yeah, so you let the audience also decide the meaning of the image. So you leave it a bit open, and you actually say, like, okay, you can. This is my my meaning, but you can also create your own.
See, yes, through my own experiences and perspective, to either make the public find some kind of connection and or not. It's like from the moment your work is placed in public, you kind of don't have much more control over it. No? You kind of lose the control over it.
Yeah.
You can guide the audience, of course, and leave the hints.
And you don't think you have to be? You have to be more clear. You think you can leave it open, and that's okay. And if the audience thinks something of it, that's fine for you.
Yes, I think so.
Hey, Tyler. Welcome. Camilla, do you have anything to say about the role of the audience in your work?
In a somehow similar way as Antonia, because I was thinking about the fact that to me, it's really interesting to play with the audience between openness and narrative. So to create some images, and more than the images itself, also the way the images communicate with one another that carry, of course, some meaning and some ideas that you have, but at the same time, then they leave some room for interpretation, so that when the audience is looking at your work, they can see what they see, but also be guided by your narrative. And that was something that I was thinking about, being part of an audience myself when I consume, let's say, others people's photographic work. And more specifically as related to my graduation work, which was called Thinking Like an Island. It was a project about the concept of the island as a geographical and as a social space. And in that specific occasion, I realized that I was thinking at the audience let's say that I was thinking to what kind of ideas they already had, what is the common knowledge and the common imaginary that people have about one topic that in my case was the island itself. And so I was trying to challenge in a way what those preconceived ideas that we have are. So the dialogue with the audience while I was making the work was about trying to challenge what I supposedly they knew already, and bringing up something new and different as related to that.
And did you, because your project is about islands, did you also test like the people that live on islands as an audience, what they thought about your way of looking at it?
Yeah, of course.
What did they say?
Of course, it was interesting and weird at the same time, because they were the subject and the audience at the same time. And also, it was really interesting to see how they were looking at themselves, about the fact that islands are a place that are very easily stereotyped, like in our common imagination, an island is always paradise or hell. It's like an utopia or dystopia, a place where you escape or where you go on holiday and feel it as indeed paradise. And to me, what I was trying to do was escape from this like dichotomia, these like binaries of thought, and try to represent the island as a contemporary place that has a lot of shades, such as every other place. But then I realized by being there, that actually people were perceiving it, also the people from the island itself, in a way that was very much dependent on those stereotypes itself. So the way they were seen by other people was reflected on themselves, and they were keeping to portray themselves in that way. So it was also difficult to escape from stereotypes, since they kind of have embodied them in the way they represent themselves and want to be represented. So that was kind of a struggle or an interesting thing to go through.
I can imagine. Cora.
Yes, for me, in my work, the audience is playing the role of this invisible voice, which is telling me and reminds me the work I'm making is not only for myself, it's also for everyone else to see. So that as the first audience of my own work, I'm always conscious of what I'm going to tell. But with the audience from social media, for example, when my self-portrait gets more likes, then I would make a lot of self-portraits for my project. But then I realized that I was manipulated by the likes. And those self-portraits, they're not fitting for my project. So I think it's very important to find the balance, and that you're in control of your project and don't care too much about what others are thinking about your work. Yeah.
Thank you. Tyler, welcome. Maybe you can introduce yourself shortly, and then we were talking about the question, what the role of the audience is in your work, for you specifically. So maybe you can tell us a bit about that.
I'm sorry about being late again. My name is Tyler. My name is Tyler. I went to Parsons for photography. My project I got selected for was The Unspectacular Negro, Search for the Oasis Promise. And when it came to me thinking about the audience, when it came to the role of my work, it was really a conversation about how to, because when it comes to photography, I think one of the main important roles is like actually listening to the image, taking your time to put all your perceptions to the side and actually allowing the image to speak to you. And for my project, when it came to the beginning of it, thinking about the audience, I realized I had to kind of like hide the face of each one of my collaborators, because what was happening was that when it came to like actually paying attention to like what each one of my collaborators would bring forward in the images, meaning like the type of clothes they were wearing or how they chose to show themselves in front of the camera, people weren't really paying attention to that because they were just focusing on their eyes and just seeing like a beautiful portrait. So for me, when it came to the first step, it was like hiding away the eyes and forcing the viewers then to track along the images to try to make some type of contact. And in that process, I feel like it gives the viewers a chance to like learn a little bit more about the individuals that I'm taking photos of. Because instead of focusing on the eyes, you're focusing on the type of clothes they're wearing, the pose that they're choosing, or even the setting that we decided to shoot together as a collaboration.
Thank you. As I understood correctly, your work was about creating other expectations of Black society, right?
Yeah.
But how did you how did you decide what was the expectation of the audience now, and how did you try to differ from this in your work? Did you test it at the audience, or was it your own interpretation?
Right. It was kind of it was more like a coming to age story. So it was like in the very beginning process, I was shooting everything inside the studio. And the concept I was trying to work on was just bringing different representations of Black people that lived in my neighborhood or lived in my community. But one of the things that I kept on running into a wall against was that being in like an all-white studio, just certain type of items brought with them, it didn't give enough details or didn't show enough perspective. So then we went forward to like actually going to their homes. And the process of going to their homes, we started to buy different curtains, different like fabric curtains that they decided that they wanted to like hang up in their backgrounds. It's like be another representation of themselves. Because throughout my project, in this conversation of Blackness, we had people who were like fourth generation living in America, from being Caribbean American to actually being from Africa themselves. And so in this whole project, it was more just because I didn't really have an expectation of like how to fully define Blackness, and I don't think I can fully define Blackness myself. So the idea was that I would just make a space where I'll allow each one of my collaborators to have a conversation with the audience. And then in that conversation, you get to learn different things about them. Because with each one of my collaborators, we did an hour-long conversation and recorded those conversations. And then when you see like a full body of work, you get to listen to those conversations as you look at the images. So that in a point, I'm kind of put on the back seat, and my collaborators, they're the ones presenting the work to you. And yeah, so I'm just another viewer as everyone else is to the work.
Thank you. I was also wondering, the panel before was about social media. And I can imagine that, if you work on a project and you have an audience in mind, also the audience gets a lot bigger because the image can go on Instagram or on the internet, and so many people can see it. Is this a thing that you keep in mind when you make a work? So the decision making, that you think like, okay, everybody is able to see this image. Maybe I should do it a different way. Is this something that you think about during the process?
Yeah, in my case, I thought about it a lot, but I don't want to give away the power to the Instagram followers. So in school, I always go to my professor and my classmates, and I would prefer their professional opinions.
Someone else, Raul, you were also telling about that you showed images that were a bit softer than you intentionally wanted to make, if I understood right. So is this a thing that you keep in mind, that the audience can be like disturbed by your images?
Well, yes, but actually the images that I do now, which in proper terms, they are softer. They are softer, but because they are contextualized inside the whole project work. And so maybe I'm photographing, I don't know, an animal or a person, but when I do it, I am creating a kind of a space in which this violence is contained with the other images of the work, and therefore I can't push the audience into a contemplation or let's say a more deep process of thought that will eventually become the portal or the door in which I'm going to put my idea and have a better welcoming of the project. It's not that individual images are softer in a way, but the work or the effort I try to put in them is to place visual cues in different images that will help the spectator to digest the entire project or the entire idea in a more gentle way, so to speak. For example, I think the other part of this is how the subject is going to be perceived in the work. Most of the times I approach to the subjects in a truly truthful way. I'm going probably, for example, in a couple of times, I have told them, I'm going to make you the most French word picture imaginable of yourself. Your picture is going to be utterly awful, or is going to be utterly true, but it is going to be also honest, completely honest about that. And most of the times, the subject, the person, for example, will accept this, and somehow this creates a synergy and a space of work in which when I photograph, when I push the button of the camera, the image is also, yes, it is raw, it is maybe cruel even, but it is also an image that the public, the audience, is going to feel in the same way as the subject. So, or at least I believe so, and most of the time it happens like that. So I think the audience finds in my images some sort of identification with the subject, and when they put themselves in that position, they are more prone, more open to understand the work, and eventually accept the grotesque nature of the image, for example.
Thank you. I was thinking, Suzannah, you work with models, and you for your project you also interviewed them, and you showed like quotes of them, and you stitched some stuff. Was it like did they also make this decision what you were going to show, and was it like what they wanted to be for the audience, how they want to be portrayed?
Yeah. I will correct you that I don't call them models, I do call them subjects. I think they play a very much dominant position within the images. Yes, they had their agency, and they also, and one thing I always do is ethically, I always want to make sure that the subjects I work with approve the work I'm putting out there. So after selecting the quotes, producing the images, hand embroidering the quotes on the images rather, I show them what I've done, and essentially it's a case of I like it, yes, it can go out, or no. There was actually one subject that said no, and that image hasn't been put out anywhere, it's been discarded. So yeah, it's very much important to me that their permission is granted, and in turn that I guess as subjects and also audiences, they play both parts. So, and that may also come into the decisions they're given, because they're so used to seeing a model on Instagram looking beautiful, and all the images that I produced for One of One are all unretouched. It was also very important that there was no stylist, and again, they had the agency to style themselves and look the way that they wanted to. So yeah, in that regard, that's how the sort of journey was. In terms of the audience, I understand that, again, the audience are so accustomed to seeing highly retouched, highly airbrushed photos, and my images may come as a shock to them because one, they're unretouched, and you can see the pores, the texture of the skin in a raw way, but also they're prints, they're not digital files. So there's those two aspects that may be quite foreign to the audience, and I was aware of that, but I also wanted to ensure that the materialistic aspect of the images were coming across and the messages were also coming across in that way too.
Thank you. And you, Cora, you worked with your hometown and the way it changed. Did you also show it to the people living there, and what did they think about it? About how you showed their place?
I showed it to my family, especially my parents, my cousins, and my brother, and they couldn't understand it. And my mom said it was meaningless, and it's quite sad to hear that from them. But and I planned it out traveling back 4 times, but because of pandemic, I could only travel back twice. And then for the another 50%, I work remotely, so I still got a lot of support from my family. They sent me their like old photos from last century in the family album, and I appreciate it a lot. They don't understand what I'm doing, even though I explain to them, because in their idea, they think that photographers are working in a very commercial way. Still, I got support from them, so I appreciate that.
Thank you. I was also wondering about showing the truth in images. So, do you guys think that you should show like a kind of general truth in your images for an audience, and that the people should always agree with it, or that it's also okay to show your truth or your version of the world or of people or of the places that you show? What do you think about this?
It is impossible, completely impossible to show anything other than your truth. We are creators of images, yes, and we use a tool, which is the camera. But it is, even if I try to work from an archive and edit images that I did not take, I will have eventually to choose some images and discard others. That is in a space, a place in which I'm actually using my subjective interpretation of the image. And therefore, in that moment, I'm using my own truth and my own beliefs of the image. To believe that one can show an inoffensive and clean, ethereal truth, it is naive. It's completely naive. And in fact, I think the more the truth, so to speak, the more clear and untouched truth we try to portray, we come to create images that are far from human experience. It is impossible for us. For example, and this was a question that rather bothered me a bit in the document we received. Even let's say clinical or scientific photograph has to obey to our understanding of light and our understanding of dimensions. So it is impossible to show other than our own truth. And this is, I think, at least, the beauty of photography, because, for example, a painter will eventually try to copy other possibilities to become a better painter. But the fact that photograph is so easy to make also make it so hard to make, because you are truly in control of the camera or even the non-camera object, and you are actually pouring yourself in the image. It is impossible, or at least for me, to create something other than your own truth.
Other people who think something about it?
I pretty much agree totally with you. And this was something that I was thinking a lot about while working on the project about islands, because my goal was in a way that of trying to approach the place with many, many different photographic approaches in order to try to get the most out of each of them and see the island from many different points of view. But then next to this, I also wanted to show how flawed this tentative, this attempt to represent things is, because in the end, even, for example, something that I was reading while working on it and that was really useful to me was about the scientific laboratory as a space. So also besides from image, just spaces in itself, the scientific laboratory tries to be neutral at its best, like to keep out of it every kind of bacteria and every kind of agent that is not following the purpose of the objectivity. But then in itself, also the laboratory is extremely flawed, and it is one kind of neutrality and one kind of representation and of idea of a space. So I think that it's interesting also trying to show how impossible in the end it is to really represent something going outside of your own subjectivity.
And did any of you ever experience like that you made a work or a project about a subject or a place or people, and that you got reactions that people who were in the project that they disagreed with how you portrayed them or their home or anything else?
Yes. Yes, quite a lot. Oh, sorry, Taylor, go ahead.
Yeah, for my project, a lot of my collaborators didn't like the name that I chose to call the project the Unspectacular Negro. And in a way, because I think like the only thing I can do as a photographer is share just a partial of my truth. And then I think by sharing that partial of the truth, it allows like a portal, allows a door to open up for other people to explore and find out if they agree with my truth or try to work out and figure out their own ideal of the truth. When it came to like, especially forming the title of my project, and then in those hour-long conversations where I was sitting down with each one of my collaborators, and we were even like arguing sometimes and discussing like why I chose Unspectacular Negro to be the title of the project. And in those conversations, I really got to, in a way, understand how they viewed their Blackness and how my understanding of my Blackness, I couldn't use that to be a catalyst for everyone's understanding of how they identify with their Blackness, and how in this kind of like in this journey of trying to understand who we are, trying to understand our place in this world, that it's a weird collaborations of all these different identities coming together and forming together. So it's always like a battle of like figuring out what's actually the truth, or how do you actually form the truth.
What I was going to say is that, yes, I have found several occasions in which my subject reacts unexpectedly, to say the least, to the picture. But I think there is a process and an aspect that should work and should be present in your effort before that. You have to really build, at least to the kind of work I think we all doing, you have to really build a relationship with the subject before taking the picture. Not precisely because something like permission or acceptance or something like that, but to earn their trust. You have to be able to show the subject that your intentions are in the right place. This is more of a sort of a moral concept. But if your intentions are on the right place, and you have the trust of your subject, when you push the button, and you obtain an image that you show them and they don't really like, at least they can understand why. For example, if one of the images I had is with my father, he really didn't like it. He doesn't want to appear like anything other like the big lawyer, big formal presence that he is. And I photographed him vulnerable, slightly asleep, something like that. And he doesn't like that image at all. But he knows that that's the precise image I have of him waiting in the hospital room day after night, whenever I am ill. And another person, for example, she is a beautiful girl with a mental disability. I played with her. I really started to know her. And there was even a moment in which she understood that my intention to photograph her was because we are different, at least in her way of seeing things. She knows she has a mental disability, and she acknowledged in a moment that I was there to capture that mental disability. And I took the picture. She really doesn't like it too much either, but I also took a lot of other pictures of her, which she really liked and she kept. And eventually she said to me that the picture I took first, which is the picture I took for myself and for the project, she identified a bit more for her. She didn't understand precisely why that image had that weight, but it was because it is the image, a truly image of herself, even if the truth is not beautiful. Even if the truth is that she sadly has a mental disability, and I even need to talk a few of the words through her mom so she understands what I'm trying to say. But she gave me a gift, an invaluable gift with that image. And from that moment, I tried to do with that image my best possible intentions. And I realized it is a difficult image to see, but also it is an image she is identified with more than the other ones in which she is playing with me or smiling or jumping or something like that. And it is really important that my subjects understand that I'm not there to create a good portrait of them, but a real portrait of them. And eventually I earned their trust, and they eventually realized that whatever I do with the image, it is probably a sensible destination because I know them. I become familiar with them. So I would, if I came across something in which they would be hurt in their feelings, because I'm not making a proper.
We're not online yet.
Sorry.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
I think we have to wrap up because it's already 1 minute before time. And
sorry.
No, it's okay. It was interesting. Hearing your experience and your point of view. I don't know if any of you has anything to say, to add something or summarize something. Otherwise, we're going to go to Klaus, I think. Thank you for being here and for sharing your thoughts. Maybe
Hi, Klaus.
There is a problem with the image. There you go. Okay, yeah. So I'm not alone. Okay. So hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Klaus, Steve,
Elena
and Suzanne. So we were part of the conference committee, and we wanted just to thank you and thank you everyone for these 2 great days, interesting days of this conference about photography and ethics. I don't know if you had a chance to listen to some of the panels yesterday, but it was very interesting to have that. And also today we were here behind the screen listening to you, which didn't want to interrupt. It's interesting all the things you said, and congratulations again for being part of Blurring the Lines this year.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, maybe just to let you know that you all will be contacted in the future for because we will write the proceeding of the conference as we did last year. Daan knows it. So you will hear from us in the coming, I would say weeks, but it's going to be a month because it takes some time. So we will keep in touch.
Okay. And it's nice to put some real faces. I mean, even if we know your work, we feel that we know you, but I mean, it's nice to see faces. Virtually, but...
Well, actually, this goes both ways. I have been writing with Steven and you, Klaus, Owen, and others. I didn't have the images to actually image you writing in the other side of the computer. And this is better, at least for me. I think when I write now, when I say, hey, Steve, etc., 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 I can see a face to that, orphan name in the image, and it is better. I'm really glad. I'm really thankful also for the space we have, for the opportunity, and I don't know what else to say. Please don't interrupt me. Please.
And you also the book yesterday. We launched the book, and you. I mean, if you look on the Instagram account, there is the link, the PDF link, so you can download the book there. And Steve will send you, of course, a copy of the book. And I'm happy to see that Owen is here. You communicated a lot with Owen, and thanks to Owen who made all this happen today. It was his job, and yeah.
Thank you all so much for making this happen and contributing in excellent ways. It's been a joy to watch your conversation.
Thanks.
And just one last thing is we, as part of Blurring the Lines, we do have different activities. We will work probably on something in January with Photodoc. So we will have a takeoff, which is a kind of a meeting where you meet professionals from all over the world, and this will take place online. So you will receive an email from Lizana what happened, one of the curators later this year, and you will get invited by some of the events and things that we do every year, because we do have, as part of the book, the conference, and the different things, we do have exhibitions. I know that Steve has selected some of the artists from different exhibitions as well. So this is not the end, it's the beginning.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you.